Boom. All right, there we go. Okay, so yeah, obviously you are in the award-winning indie film Crown and Anchor with Michael Rowe. Tell us about your character Danny and the synopsis of the movie, because it's really intense.
Cool. Yes. Thanks. Thanks so much for chatting with me, Diana.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Crown and Anchor is it's a character study. You know, it's a character study of two cousins who used to be very close, and they both grew up in the same petty crime family surrounded by addiction and abuse, and they went their separate ways. My character remained part of that mess, and he continued the cycle of addiction and violence, while my character's cousin, who Michael plays, he went a different way. He became a cop, actually put his own father in jail to try to get revenge for the abuse. And the movie picks up when these two cousins have to come back together after many years apart. And we see how the trauma has treated them much differently. And now they get caught up in some crime again. And we see how that plays out.
Wow. Was any of this inspired by, true events, or is this purely fictional, or where did this come from?
Yeah, well, the original version of the script, our screenwriter is Andrew Rowe, who's Michael's younger brother.
Oh, okay.
And he also directed it. He also directed the film. But the original script I wrote, and it was very much inspired by my own sort of dark family in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. I mean, obviously, we took a lot of liberties, but it was really inspired by that idea of a cycle of violence and addiction that can sort of poison and permeate a family through generations. Like are we who we are because of our environment, because we're born into it? Do we learn these things? So I was always really interested by that, because my mom, her father, my grandfather, was an alcoholic, and when he drank, he was very abusive. And that affected my mom and her brothers very differently. My mom broke the cycle, and she broke the cycle for me. But her brothers weren't as lucky, and that affected my cousins. So there was just the idea of that was very interesting to me, and that's where the idea of the script came from. And then when Andrew came on board and sort of took a different take on the original version I had wrote, he kept those themes. So that was all very important, but the darkness is very familiar to me. The character of Danny was very familiar to me because I'd experienced that through, peripherally through a lot of my family, and understanding the darkness that alcoholism and addiction can bring. So it was, and we filmed it in our hometown of St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. So it was very, it was like going home in a sense, but also going home to some of the things maybe that you'd left behind, which is very true to the characters in the movie.
Gotcha. So with all of this, I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn here, because, you were once in a punk band, a pretty notorious one called Bucket Truck. And punk and metal and all of that in the genre deals with a lot of, can deal with a lot of, violence, aggression, frustration with your upbringing, the list goes on, but it can deal with a lot of very dark concepts. Did you pull anything out of your past to kind of, fuel your music in the band, or was that separate for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, music in any form is expressive, right? Any kind of art, but certainly music, and definitely aggressive music. The band that Michael and I were in, Bucket Truck, we were a real hybrid. It was punk, it was metal, it was hardcore. I don't really know how you categorize us, but we had elements of all those things. We did tours with Slayer and Damageplan, but we also did shows with like DOA and Lagwagon. So we could really fit into all those different worlds. But there was definitely something about that type of expression, like I was the singer of that band, and we were notoriously a pretty crazy live band. That was our the meat and potatoes for us. And there was something, and there's something still that I miss about it, just that getting on stage in a room full of hundreds or thousands of people who are with you or a part of that energy, and you can just sort of unleash it with, a dirty riff or, some crazy double kick, just something that you all feel part of it. And, in terms of the thematic, we really fell into, certainly in our later years, we fell into that sort of socially conscious sort of hardcore punk, where we took on a lot of political things, very much maybe like a band like System of a Down would have done, where we took on some of those social concepts that were important to us, and we could take on our aggression that way.
Which is perfect. It's the healthiest thing to do as long as you're processing everything, as you're going along. And then I'm going to take you right back into acting, though. For, obviously the concept and the themes of Crown and Anchor are very dark. But have you done any comedies? Have you done anything a little bit lighter to kind of balance things out?
Yeah, Crown and Anchor is definitely very dark. And I do enjoy going to those places. But I find acting, very much similar to my life in music, where it's just an expressive sort of act, whether it's jumping around on stage and yelling and screaming a song, whether it's me performing a song with my acoustic guitar, or if it's doing something like Crown and Anchor, or doing something comedic, like just going back to what myself and Michael Rowe had done. And not only Michael, but the first time myself, Michael, and his brother Andrew worked together was actually on a short film called The Business of Acting. And it was all comedy. You can find that on YouTube. And that's how Michael started acting. Him and his brother Andrew just worked on these sort of dark comedic short films. And this is one where Mike and I just got to sort of flex our what we think we have as our comic muscles. But when we were on the road in the band, it was like six guys constantly just joking or taking the piss out of each other. So I felt like that was my training. It was like long drives between cities, stupid jokes, watching Jackass on the bus or in the van, and then deciding, you know what we should do? Let's do what they did on Jackass. Just stuff like that. So that, I think everybody has darkness in them. But the thing about acting and music is that it allows you to sort of dive into it, even when you're being funny. Like Crown and Anchor, as dark as it sounds, it gets a lot of laughs. When we watched it when it was doing its theatrical release, it's dark. There's dark humor. There's comedy even in life when things are sad and shitty, because that's just the way life is. You can still find the funniness. And so yeah, it's not all dark. I'm not a dark guy, but there is something interesting about exploring that part of your life. Maybe when you get to explore it, it stops you from wanting to really, really properly explore it. Yeah, there'd be a nice buffer right there going, okay, I've hit it, I'm there, and we're good. Yeah. So just close enough, just close enough to the fire. Yeah. You don't want to get too burned. You want to get tanned. If you can, refrain from getting burned, that's fantastic. Just get a good base tan. So where do you see your career going from here? It's a good question. I kind of just like jumping from project to project based on who I'm working with and what the project is. Michael and I, when the band ended, we wanted to continue working together, and that's how Crown and Anchor happened. And so this was our first time making a film. We both started acting late because we honestly thought we were going to be in that band for the rest of our lives. We did it for 12 years. We toured around the world. But I think that we're hoping to turn Crown and Anchor potentially into a TV series. And there's also a couple other scripts that myself, Michael, his brother Andrew, and our producer Vince have developed that we plan to make now that Crown and Anchor is done. And the one other thing I'd say, just to tie it in with the theme of music and metal that you guys talk about on your site, music is a really big part of Crown and Anchor, because it's entirely scored with punk and hardcore music, and some legendary stuff like old Revelation Records band stuff from the 80s hardcore scene, like Gorilla Biscuits,
right.
Youth of Today. We've got a band, a really amazing new band from New Jersey, and they're called Horror. And the characters were, an extra layer to the characters was painted with the music specifically. So my character was like a messy drunk. So the songs that we'd hear playing for him were like a band like Gorilla Biscuits, more party punk. But for Michael's, or like an artist like Johnny Thunders, but Michael's character was a straight edge hardcore guy. So we hear like Project X or DYS playing. So there's a lot of really legendary punk and hardcore music in our film that anybody who loves heavy music at all will really dig, and they'll dig the extra layer that's there because music is the third character in the movie.
Very cool. On your website or, anywhere involving the movie, is there an accessible list of bands that, have music on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find it all there, crownandanchorfilm.com, all our social medias, all that stuff. Like even if you just go onto our IMDb page, you'll see a list of all the bands that are there. It's a pretty, just as a music fan, that's the thing that started getting us attention the most first, because, this is an indie film. There's a lot of indie films out there, but people couldn't deny, they're like, how did this indie film get all this music? And, how did they get these really amazing bands? And that's the thing, I remember Revolver Magazine did a write-up on us before the movie even came out last year, even before it was in theaters, because they were just like, look at all these bands. So that was interesting, and that just came from our life in music. We love music, we love that old punk and hardcore stuff, and we wanted it to be part of what we were doing.
Very cool. Well, then where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your new band? And I will make sure that I get all the bands that are in this film as, some kind of feature in this write-up.
Cool. Yeah. I'm on social media, just Matt A. Wells, MATTAWELLS. I'm pretty active there. Same thing on Instagram. Everything musically that I've been doing has really just sort of been for myself. I tour sometimes as a solo musician. Myself and Michael have been trying to continue recording and stuff like that. But it's funny that the bucket truck stuff has really started to have a small resurgence because of the movie and because of what Michael has been doing on Arrow. And we got asked to go over to London a year and a half ago to play some shows. And all of a sudden, like these leftover CDs that we got in my basement in Toronto, people are like, "Can I get one of those?" And I'm like, people still listen to CDs, but because you can't really find a lot of it out there. Once we stopped playing, we just sort of put an end to it all, and we didn't really continue to have it released or anything like that. So it's funny now because a lot of people are trying to find that music.
That's very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Matt, that's all I have for you. Thank you again so much, and good luck. Can't wait to do the review and the write-up. I will be watching the movie tonight to really see what all the fuss is about. But, yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your support, Diana. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Take care.
Take it easy. Bye.